सबने खोल लिया वर्कबेंच? तो हम क्या करेंगे ना कि
Yes.
what we'll do is I'll share my screen and we'll start with the I think database query अभी तक नहीं हुई ना, लास्ट क्लास में हुई थी क्या? Like did Piyush went through the uh, selecting the table using the database and querying the database, ऐसा कुछ हुआ अभी तक?
Yeah, basic queries done by the
Base.
Piyush.
Look, did he like query the database, the one
No,
which?
query the table.
No.
Ah,
All
yeah,
right.
test DB. Yeah.
All right. So I'll start from the very basic. And yeah, I'll use the language English because I think there are few people who don't understand Hindi at all. So for their convenience, I'm going to speak only in English. And like, pardon me if I use, at times I might unintentionally use some Hindi words. So if that happens, you can raise your hand and just tell me if you didn't understand a particular topic or word, right? So I'll try my best to keep this conversation, keep this lecture only in English. Okay. All right, guys. I hope my audio is audible, and I hope everyone has Workbench installed and running in their system. What we'll do is you just look at my screen. You don't need to parallelly do that because that would be difficult because otherwise you'll be just switching between screens. So what you do is just have that Workbench installed, have that table installed. Few questions which I will particularly tell you कि हाँ, for this question you have to like just query it in your Workbench and tell me what the output, yeah, what the query would be. In that case, you can switch to your Workbench or like just switch the tab and do that. Otherwise, just keep your focus on my screen, right? So keep your focus on this video and just make sure that whenever I share my screen, you can put my screen on full screen mode so that all the uh, all the stuff that I do on my screen is visible to you with full clarity. Okay, guys, so I'll start. I'll share my screen. Just let me know if anyone is not able to see my screen. Else, I'll assume that everyone is able to see my screen. Okay. Yeah. So I hope everyone is able to see my screen. All right. So
Yes.
see,
Yes, visible.
yeah. So what we'll do is today we are going to query a database. I think everyone knows what.
Hello, sorry to disturb you, but here we cannot able to see your screen. Me and Rahul both.
Sorry, I cannot hear
Uh,
you. What did you say?
your screen is not visible to us. Uh,
Not visible. Just a
for
second.
me and Rahul.
Yeah, it's visible to me though.
Visible.
Okay. Is it visible now? Both?
Yes.
Uh, no.
Yes, sir, it is visible right now.
All right, all right. So, is anyone else facing a problem with screen visibility? I'm hoping not, right? All right, all right, all right. So, I think if there is a visibility issue, that might be the internet problem from your side. All right. So just make sure that you have uninterrupted internet access at least for the next 1 hour. All right, guys. So I'll start. So what we are going to do today is we are going to query a database. So I think everyone might have installed and created this CP database, which was like mentioned in the previous video. And if you just see that CP database, there are several tables in that CP database. I'll open my workbench eventually and show you. So you know what is the name of the database? It is called CPE. And in that CPE database, you have these tables, right? So I'll just show you what this means. Yeah. So if you see here, this is your database, right? This particular uh, icon with a stacking kind of thing is called CP, which is called database, and then these are your tables. So you have around 8 tables, right? 8 or 9 tables. E01. These are the table names. And if you just like click on this download arrow, you can see all the columns that are there in the table, right? For example, customer cust table has ID column, name column, right? And different columns there, right? So this is called column, this is called table. The table name is these, and when you click on the drop downs, you will see what are the column name. Right? So what we'll do is we'll start with the very basic, right? Very basic. Let's do this thing. Whenever you enter in a database, you have to first select database. If you see this I told you database is also called schema, right? If you have gone through the last videos. So if you see, we have a lot of schemas here, right? We have CP schema, TB demo schema, Maven fuzzy factory schema, Olympic history schema, right? So how do you tell the system that which schema I want to use or which schema I want to go enter into, right? As I told you, before querying the table or before performing any operations, you first have to enter the database. So let's say if I want to access the CP schema. So what do I do? Anyone has the answer?
Use the name of database. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
Select a
CPC.
CP.
Right. So what we do is we simply use this syntax. We type the word use and then we type the schema name or the database name and we put a semicolon. Remember, semicolon is very important, right? For any query. What semicolon does is semicolon stops your query here. And when you run it, all the query will be run from the last semicolon to the current semicolon, wherever your cursor is, right? So let's say your cursor is at this point. So is there any semicolon before this? No. So this will be what will be run, right? And anything below that will won't be run if you click on this icon. So I'll just like walk you through the basic of what this workbench interface look like. So see, in a MySQL or in a SQL environment, if you don't want a particular line of code to be executed or read by the machine, but you just want it for your understanding, right? If you want to write something, so what we do is we put this double hyphen, right? I hope this is called hyphen. So you put this double dash, right? So after double dash, if you give a space and write anything in this line, this won't be executed when you run the command, right? So this is called comments. So this is called comments. Comments are simply used because you want the code to be easily readable, right? As you can see, I have written 7 comments on 7 different lines, right? So it starts with a double dash, and then whatever you write, it won't be read by the computer. And then as soon as you come to the next line, this line is now going to be read by computer, right? Or read by your machine. Then here you see you started with the syntax UCP. So this UCP semicolon. Now let's say if you want to run this, right? You have to run the query wherever your cursor is, right? Those part of the semicolon between the semicolon, those code between the semicolon where your cursor is. So what you do is you simply click on this icon. This you can see the lightning bolt with a cursor sign, right? So what does this does is this just executes this particular line. So let's say I'm clicking on this. So see, now this code is executed. How do you know this code is executed? If you just go down here, you see this latest action. It is showing a green tick. Green tick means it is executed. And UCP, this was the code which you run. It shows 0 rows affected because that you didn't want any output, right? You didn't ask for any output. So what it did was it simply went into the or opened the gates for the CP database. Now anything that you write after that will be done within the CP schema. Let me see. I think there's some. Yeah. Hey, Shubhankar. All right. You see, everyone understood how we got into the CPE schema simply by using the word CPE, right? Now, let us just enter into what are the tables that we want. So let's say there are these different tables. Let's say I want to see what are the different columns or what are all the columns present in the customer table. So what I do is you can see select all the columns from the table E001 cust. So anyone has any idea how do we do this? How do we select all the columns from table
Select
E001?
a star.
Yeah,
Select
Select
star
star.
yeah.
from
Select
table.
star
Select
from
star
the
from table name.
Table
yeah.
CPE.
No, you don't need to put CP, right?
Okay.
Since they've already added CP in the first line, so now the gates of your database is open. Now, anything that you write after this is going to be assumed that you are wanting that table from this, you want this table from the CP database, right? So you don't need to write again and again, the CP word, right? Though there is another method, will show that later. You can simply write, let's say if you don't want to use the word use and you simply want to access using the database name, then you write cp dot e001. But this is relatively easy, right? You simply use cp at one time, only for one time, and then after that you can access all the tables that are there. So let's say now I run this. Now there are two methods to run this. One, you can simply click this button, execute, right? So it executes wherever your cursor is, that code. It executes that code. So let's say I run this, right? So see, you'll see this is the output window where you see all the rows, you see all the columns. Since you click select star, so select star means these are the columns and these are all the values within the table, right? And then this is called log window. This log window, what it does is it simply tells you whether your code has been successfully executed or not. So you see a green tick means successfully executed. This is the time of execution. This is what the code you run, and this how many rows is returned, right? So in the final output, you had 15 rows or 15 different IDs or 15 different values in this table, right? Which table? From E001 customer. E001 cast, right? So we got all the values from cast. So you see what are different values. You have this ID, first name, last name, city, address. So this is a customer table basically. Let's say I ask you to query, the different other table. Let's say I want to query or I want to see what are the values, all the values in all the rows in the orders table. So what I do is select star from E001 E001 underscore orders. Right. Then I put a semicolon and then I simply press this button. Okay. So now you see uh, these are the values in the orders table, right? What are the values? ID. ID means order ID. This is which customer made the order, right? Customer ID. This is the order date. This is the order details, which item was ordered, and this is the total order cost. What was the total cost of the order? If you see what are the values in the customer table, so you see, there is one customer ID. So customer ID is used to recognize the customer. There is the customer name, customer last name, customer city. Then there is address. There are some empty values. I'll tell you what this means. And there is this phone number, right? So you see we have a basic idea of what are the different uh, values in these two tables. So today we are just going to stick with these two tables, right? Just have a look at these two tables very clearly. One is customer table and one is the order table, right? You can, if you want, you can just with a pen and paper draw this and keep this with you handy because it will help you solve various problems. So now let us go back to our customer table, right? Because this is customer and order, right? Now let me tell you, let us start with a very basic query, and I will keep the session interactive because we are practicing, and practicing only helps if we are communicating well. So see this third question: how many customers we have, right? Let's say I want to have a count of how many customers we have. So anyone has any idea of how do we go about this?
Count.
We
Just a
use the
second.
count function. Select.
I think it would be better if you raise hands because that will, or rather you can say because otherwise I'll have to skip screen. So who said count?
Yes, me.
Lo-
It's Rahul as well.
Lokesh.
Okay, it is better you raise hand, right? I think let us keep it that way. You raise hand and then I'll ask, a particular person, then he can mute. So let us go with Lokesh. I think Lokesh is new. So Lokesh, yeah, how do we get to know how many customers we have? Can you tell me the
Yeah,
query for that?
select count, open bracket. Yeah, and customers name, first name or
What do you want to add in count?
count first name or ID something. Number of
Okay, I'll
customers.
tell you. Before that, I'll tell you one concept. See, understand the table first. See, whenever you are querying, right, one important thing that as a data analyst you will have to do is before going into the coding, as I told you in the first class, this is all logic, right? So before we go into what we have to do, what is a SQL query, first always try to understand in a layman's term what this table means, right? So what this table means, right? This is nothing but a detail or a record of all the customers, right? So what is this? This ID is the customer ID. Then what is the name of the customer? Where does the customer live? If this is a city, this is the address. If he has entered the address, and this is the phone number, right? And we have several such customers, such records. Now just understand one thing. This ID column, this has to serve some purpose, right? This ID column. Lokesh, can you unmute? Like, can you mute yourself? Yeah. And anyone else, if he has, I think, unmuted, can you please mute? I think Pramod.
Yes.
Guys, can you just mute yourself? Mute.
Okay.
Yeah, guys. So unmute yourself only when I ask you to, right? Or only if you have any doubt or have, or are answering any question. So that will not create any disturbance for other. So see, uh, as I told you, this is the customer table. In customer table, we have a ID column. Every customer will have a unique ID because if we have, the very purpose of ID is to uniquely identify a particular record or a particular person or in whatever, table we are using and whatever context we are using the ID. ID is nothing but a unique identifier, right? So you see, these IDs are always going to be unique, right? So for example, Jill and William can never have two common ID, right? See, whenever you have a column where you have unique values, that means every row will have unique values to represent a different kind of record in that row. So that usually is called uh, what is a primary key, right? The primary key is nothing but a column with unique values, right? So that column is called a primary key column or a primary key, right? So here is the unique is ID. So you know that no two customer can have same ID. So if you want to find how many customers are there, so if you, as Lokesh pointed out, or as Lokesh said, you can simply type select count, and then you can type the ID name. I think count was covered in the last class, so I'm assuming that you know these basic syntax, right? So what does count does is, what do count does is, I'll just first type this, select count ID from the table name, which is E00001 underscore cust, right? So now what this does is, from the value, from the table customer, it will count the ID column. What do you mean by count? Count means it will count how many ID columns are there, right? So, or how many values are there in the ID column. 8, 7, 4, 5, 3, 14, right? So it will count. So this is the first value, this is the second value, this is the third value, this is the fourth value, this is the fifth value, sixth value, right? So what this is doing is, this is nothing, this is counting, and then after counting, whatever is the final number, it will return you that number. So see, if I just run this, it will give you 15, right? So how many columns were there? 15. So I'll just show this to you on this blackboard as well. So see, what happens is when you use the word count, this is your table, right? And this is your ID column. Your ID was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So and let's say this table is T1, right? So whenever you type select count ID or any column where you want to count, right? From T1. So what this particular code does is, it will count how many values are there in each of the rows of the ID column. So how many values will we find? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So what it does is, it simply returns value 6. But say 6, it cannot return simply, right? It will have to give it, always remember, any output is always in the form of a table, right? So table will always have a row and a column. So if this is the value of a row, what is the name of the row? So it simply picks up this count ID as the name of the row. So whatever you get in the what you will get in the final output is count ID. So this becomes a column name, and this is the column value, which is nothing but the actual count. Count means total, or maybe how many different IDs present, or how many IDs are present there. Now this can evoke some question here. For example, please try to understand this count very clearly, because this will help you in a lot of questions in the future. And if anyone has any doubt, feel free to raise your hands. Again, we'll do the same exercise. Let's say this is ID1, and then let me call this a name. Let me call it a name A. Then ID2, name B. Then ID3, name C. Now let's say for some reason, the ID for the fourth person was not allotted, or maybe there was some system error which didn't capture the ID, but we still have the name of the person. And then this is fourth and E, right? Now when you run the same query, right? Select count ID from T1. So what this is going to do? What do you think? What is going to be the final output? Uh, anyone?
4 will be the output.
Four.
The 4 will be the output, right? And what will be the column name?
ID.
Column name will be count ID.
Count ID, right? So see, you always remember the final output of any query is going to be in a form of table, and table will have either multiple rows or one row. But since you're doing count, so that means you'll have only a single row, and the name of the row will be simply taken from here, right? So, and the answer will be 4. Now, why did you say 4? If you see, we have 5 values, but why did you say only 4? 1, 2, 3. Why did you skip this?
Because it will count ID column. So that's why.
Right. So just understand what happens is this: whenever you have a blank value in a particular column, it is called null, right? And this count function, it ignores the null, right? So what it will do is it only wants to go in this particular column. What will it will go is it will go in this particular column and count all the rows where you have at least something written, some values written in that. So see, there is one written, so it will count this as one. Then there is something written two. Then there is something written three. Then it will come to the fourth row, but it will find that okay, there is nothing. So this is a null row, right? Null column. So it will ignore this. Then it will come here and it will count four. So what will it will do is it will give the final output as four, right? So I think this is clear. Now let's say this count ID, this looks very shabby. I don't want to show this. Let's say if I want to rename it as something. Let us call count of IDs, something like that, right? So what you do is here you use the term or use the concept called alias. I'll tell you what alias. I'll again draw the same table, right? And you have this ID, you have this name, right? Let us call this ID 1, 2, 3. Let this be blank. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 5, 7, 9. Right. Now, now this is null and this is null. Right. And I want the output as something like this. Number of ID, and then there should be some ID. So first tell me what will be the query for that? If I want this instead of the count ID, right? If you see here count ID, I want this instead of this, I want this. So
Can I
yeah.
select
Hmm.
count
Hmm.
count in bracket ID
Hmm.
as
As yes, as
custom name of customer ID. I mean which is written in the column
right, right. From
from
T2,
table name.
T1, right. So what will be the answer here? What will be the final output here?
It will give the output as a table name of I mean customer name of ID.
Hmm.
4 1 2 3 4 5 6 6 number
One,
of
two,
records
three,
in 6.
4, 5, 6. Right. So what it has does what it has done is it has ignored the null values, right? So it is not counting this, it is not counting this, and it is taking this name, number of ID as the column name. See what happens is this is called alias. So what alias does is whenever you want to rename a column and don't want to give this shabby name or this functional name, function name. So what you do is you simply use the word as and then you give whatever name of column you want. But remember, there should be no space between the name of column. So what we do is in SQL we always use underscores. Right? So always remember any name that you are going to give is going to be as underscore, matlab separated by underscore and not by space, like you do in normal English. You can, you have to use this underscore. So these are some basics, right? I think count is very clear now. Mm, now let
Sir,
us yeah, yeah. Who is this?
yes, so Varun this side, sir,
Yeah, Varun.
if we write count and in place of ID we write name, so the
Yeah,
output will be same.
good question, good question. So let me just, draw this table. So let us take this example. This is ID. This is name, right? So I'm going to take a different permutations here. Let me now call this 1, 2, 3, 7, 91, 42. This could be any, right? ID could be anything. Let me call this A, B, C, D, E, F. Right. Yeah. So what your question was, Arun, that count, select, count. What you're saying is instead of ID, you write name, right? Name
Yes.
from T1. C. Now this is, what do you think? What do you think? What will it do? If you know the logic now, I think you can tell me the answer. What do you think will, what is this query going to do?
I'm guessing that it will be same.
Yeah. So what it does is inside count, whatever column name you put, right? It doesn't matter. It has to be a valid column name. Just understand it this way. This particular code is going to take it to that column name, right? In that table. And then in that column name, it will simply count how many rows have a valid input or something written. It is not blank. It is not null. So see, A, B, C, D, E, F. How many values? Six values. So it will simply return six, right? So it will simply return count, name, and answer would be six, right? As simple as that. And let's say if you have, a blank row here or null row here. So what will the value be in this case?
Five.
Five,
Five.
five. Yeah. So as simple as that. So it doesn't matter what n- column name you put. The only difference will be that it will go in that column, right? And then it will count the number of valid rows in that column or number of non-null rows. This is also called number of non-nulls. Always remember counting the number of non-null rows. Now that you have asked me this question, Varun, I'll also uh, extend this concept and maybe give uh, uh, explain another concept here, which is of if you have duplicate values, right? Let's say, for example, in any table, as a data analyst, you're going to face a lot of time where now your table is not going to be very clean. It will have a lot of repeated value, missing values. So see, in this case, what is this called? Right? As for example, if we see here, right? So see this null. So this null is also called missing values, right? So you have a value missing, right? Sometimes you will have this repeated. So I'll just put this down very clearly here. See, there can be two cases, right? Just ignore my drawing here. It's difficult to use this digital pad. I hope you're fine with this, this type of drawing.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. So yeah, let us take two separate cases, right? So I'll call this as missing value and duplicate value. So always remember, and you can note this concept down, whenever you are working as a data analyst, you are always going to, face this particular challenge that you will have a lot of duplicate values, you will have a lot of missing values, right? Mm, all right. So see, missing values means, as we have already discussed this, one, two, and this three, four, five, right? And duplicate value means one A, one A, two B, three C, three C, four D. So you see, these two are null values. So any row of a particular column can be null, right? And you see these are duplicate values. Here the values are repeated. So, you have to always handle these cases whenever you are working as a data analyst, and you have to be very, very cautious in whatever query you write, and for which, uh, you know, the query can, or these kind of cases can affect your output. So always be very cautious whenever you write a code, and I'm going to show you what difference will it make, when you do the similar query in both the cases. So for example, let us take this select count ID. So we all know this, right? From T1. So what would it will do is it will simply count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So see, count ignores the null value. So you have to always remember that whenever you use the word count, it is not going to calculate, or it is not going to count any row which has null values. And then let's say for this case, select count, or let us call this name from T1. So what do you think will be the output here? Anyone? Maybe anyone who has not spoken. Let's go with Indu. Indu, do you know what will be the output here? Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
So I think Indu doesn't want to answer. So anyone else? Maybe we can go with. I think who hasn't answered yet? Let's go with Pramod or Harshvardhan. Harshvardhan, what do you think will be the output here?
6.
6. Okay. So
Yeah.
see what this has done. What has this query done? You can unmute, like you can mute yourself. Yeah. So what does this query done is, or what does this query do is, it will simply count even the duplicate rows, even if it is duplicate. It will not matter, right? So what we are doing is we are going in this name column and we are counting how many rows has some valid entry there. So it will only ignore null. Except null, it will not ignore anything, right? So even if it is repeated, it will count this as twice, right? So A is 1, then other A is 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. Even though C is repeated, it will be 4 and 5, and then 6, right? So what is the other thing that count does is count uh, does not ignore the duplicate values. So always remember, whenever you're working with count, uh, you have to be very aware, and you have to be very mindful of these two things, or these two features of count, right? So now let us do one thing. Let's say if you want to find only the non-duplicate values, right? Let's say if you want to find how many different IDs or how many students are there, how many, let's say if this was a student table or a customer table, how many customers are there? If you want to find using this table, right? Let me call this as table T1. Yeah. Now what will you do if you want to use, if you want to find
We
that?
use distinct plots. I mean,
Yes, yes. Who was this?
Rahul Jaiswal.
Okay, Rahul. So yeah. So I think Rahul is perfect in his answer. So let's say if you want to count from, let me just rename this table. Let me call this table duplicate dupe. So from this dupe table, if you want to count only the number of students or different number of students. So see, if you think, if you simply do the counting, or if you simply use the count function, what will it do is it will count ID1, then again ID1 is twice. So what the output, if you simply use count ID or count name, what would it will give you, the answer at 6, right? But 6 is not the correct answer. So the correct answer is 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Because there are four different IDs or distinct ID. So just to avoid these duplicate values being counted again and again, or counted twice, thrice, however times it repeats. So what you do is you simply use select count and then distinct of whatever ID or whatever column you are counting in. So count distinct from the table due. So what this does is now this will simply go in that ID column. It will count one as one, right? Then it will come to the second one. It will see, okay, one, but one has already happened, right? So it will not count one again. Then it will go to the other row, and the other row says two. Then it will count two as two. Then it will go to the other row, which is three. Three is also different. It has not been repeated, so three as three. Then it will come to the fifth row. It will see, okay, three has again been repeated, so it will ignore three. It will ignore this. So what are the values that it will consider? It will only consider this, this, and this, right? So what will your answer be? Count, distinct, ID, and answer will be four, right? So whenever you want to bypass, or whenever you want to work around this duplicate values being counted multiple times, you simply add a word distinct. So distinct will simply count all the unique values, right? So I'll just write this down. It will only take unique values in a particular column, right? So I hope it is clear till this part, right? Now let us go back to Workbench. Anyone has any question? I think it was a good question pointed by Varun, so it led us to two different concepts. So anyone or any other question? Yeah, Rahul.
When we use schema, right? So is
Mhm.
it mandatory to use column? I mean, when I use na schema, then instead of using column, I also run it. So is it mandatory to use column?
I didn't get you, Rahul. What are you saying?
I mean, when I use just use CPS, CP and use CP.
Yeah,
So is it
yeah.
mandatory to use column after the text?
Colon, yeah, yeah. This colon is mandatory. See, it will depend on what environment you're working. Let's say for Jupyter Notebook, or there are some software or some writing platform where you don't need to use column, you can simply run. But this is a good practice. Why I'm saying this, if let's say you can run at in some systems without colon, or it is called semicolon basically. So without semicolon, it can run, but just it is a good practice because it will, bifurcate, or this will dif, dif, differentiate between different lines of code that you will be writing, right? So let's say if you want to run UCP, like you have written this code, right? And now you have to run only this one, right? Let's say only this one. So if you don't put colon here, so and you click here, so see it will give you error. See, it will give you error. You can see this is a red mark. Why? Because this is assuming that you want to run everything between this colon to the last semicolon, right? So, but if you see this is not a valid syntax. After select star from customer, you are again writing select star from orders, right? So
No,
when
no,
you put a
I'm only talking about the schema parts. I mean,
yeah schema also. Let's say if you don't write, if you don't use
uh,
this. See now if you
uh,
run, it will again
I
show you
want
the
to.
same error.
Okay.
Once you have used a semicolon, so you don't have to when you use a semicolon, so that means that code is done, right? So that particular piece of query is done. Now any next line will be a different piece of query, right? So if you don't use a semicolon, that means you are running this in entirety. So this will give you error, right? So just try to avoid and only use semicolon after every query. Okay. Rahul, you can mute yourself. Yeah. Harshvardhan, what was your question?
Actually, Neil, I was trying to use distinct star that come syntax, but it's not working. Can you check like if it's working for you?
Okay, okay. Let's check here here itself. I think here we have distinct rows. Uh, let's see. which table. Here also we have distinct values. Let me see.
I was using on E001 underscore customer CUST. Yeah, this one
On
only.
this one,
Yeah,
so it's not running. Count.
it's coming as syntax error.
So I think you might have missed something. What is this? Count, distinct, select, count, distinct, star. Okay, I think this is showing syntax error for me as well. I think for MySQL you have to use the column name, is it? Yeah. So I think for MySQL, so sometimes these star thing might differ from platform to platform. So if you just run count star, so this will run, but at many places this will not run. So if you see for this example itself, distinct star is giving an error, right? So it is better to avoid and just use the column name because this might work for SQL, this might not work for MySQL, right? So let us just keep it to the ID name or the column name for our understanding. So when you do distinct ID, so it will give you a count of all the distinct ID, right?
Okay. There's one more thing. Like, let's say in ID there are null values. Then is
Hmm.
there a way to like rectify that thing and get the real count?
See, if there are null values in ID, what you can do is we'll learn this concept in table joins. There might be some table which will have the corresponding name and the IDs associated to it, which has not been reflected in the table of your concern, right? So you can do a join and then you can get the ID name and then do a count of that newly joined table, right? But let's say if in this table you have a column where you have a null ID. So if you are doing a count on the ID column, so it will be difficult. So you can do a count on the other column, assuming that there is no null values in the other column. So it is very difficult to handle null. Null usually, it has troubled analyst a lot, null and duplicate values. So yeah, this is going to be a part of life as a data analyst. You'll have to find way around using joins or maybe using some other column where there's not any null values. So these are the kind of things that you can use. But we'll
Yeah.
learn this concept in depth later on. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So now let us move forward. I think we are going very slow. We have just we have not even covered completed the third question. So like everyone got it. How many customer we have? So what we did is we simply did a count of ID and we got the number of customer. Let's say I just want to give it a name. So what I'll do is number as number of customers. Okay. And I run this and I get 15. Right? Now this is a easy query. I'll not ask. I'll simply like assume that everyone knows it. Show the ID and the first name of the customer. So what you are doing is select ID, comma, first name from this table, and I'll run. So I'll get the ID and the first name, right? So I think this was easy. Now I want this. What are the different cities from which the customer belongs, right? So let me just put this customer table in front of you. Yeah. See, this is the customer table. Now I want what are the different cities, there are several cities and you want to find what are the different cities from which, different customers belong. So what will be the query for that? Anyone?
Select distinct city from the table.
Right. So what we'll do is select distinct city. So distinct, what it will do is it will go into the city column and it will only pick up the distinct. So see, distinct you can apply with count as well. You can apply with city as well, right? So you see, select distinct from each customer one. So what it will give you? It will give you 6 rows, right? 6 rows return. One, two, three, four, five, six. And let's say you just want to know how many different cities are there. So you will write this, select distinct city. It will give you six as an answer, right? So see, this is how distinct works. Distinct is nothing but distinct number of records, or rows. in a particular column. So you got this right. Now this is a pretty like this is not a very difficult question, but I would say can be a little tricky. So now who will answer this? How many customers belong to each of these cities, right? So for example, these are your cities, right? So you want to find how many customer is there in San Francisco, in Austin, right? So anyone? So let me just first try like show this table. Who raised hand? Who is this? Pramod. Yeah, Pramod. Go ahead.
Yes. How many customers in each city we have defined, right?
Yeah, how many customer in each of these different cities?
S- Select city, count first name
Okay, you're going with first name.
from the table name. It is, and group by city name,
Group by city.
city.
All right. So what will this return? Before I run this, will this return the desired output? What is this going to do? It is going to group by
Uh,
city and then count the number of first name. Why did you use first
yeah.
name?
uh,
What if we have any duplicate? Let's say there are two Williams here, right? Or duplicate values.
but in the count, every name will be there, right? If it is not blank or null.
Right. So if it is not
Yeah.
blank or null, you will get the. But let's say for example, this William is repeated twice, right? Four William, four William. So you will see that from Denver, William will be counted as twice, right? Because it is going to count a
So
duplicate value. So what
we
is the way to
we
avoid
can
this?
apply
Distinct.
distinct first name we can apply.
So see, now
Yes.
again we can
That's
have a
also
problem here.
wrong.
Let's say let me just let Pramod see what is the mistake here. I think this is a good way to learn. See, Pramod, let's say if you use distinct first name. Let's say if we have someone called as William Daniel and we have another custom called as William Michael, right? So these are two different customers. But what distinct will do is distinct will count William only as one, right? So I don't know whether
Yes,
we
yes,
have any
yes,
such
exactly.
example or not. I don't think we have any example. So you're getting right. Let's say Pramod Kumar, Pramod Sharma. So if you
Yes.
put distinct name, so Pramod will be counted only as one. So what is the way to avoid that?
Uh,
Distinct ID.
Yeah, you can simply always,
Distinct phone
when
number will do.
yeah, yes, absolutely right. Distinct phone number also works, right? Phone number
Yeah.
will anyway
Yes.
be distinct, but yeah, you can use distinct phone number. So see, what Pramod did here is he knew what we want exactly, right? We want different customers, right? So what are the ways you can identify customers, right? You can identify customer either by his ID, either by his name, or by his phone number, right? We saw that we can put first name, but what if the name repeats, right? Or if we have duplicate names, so that becomes a trouble. So you want different customer. What are the values or attributes which will be different for different customers, right? Name can be same, right? ID will be different. So one easy way is to use ID, right? Distinct ID, or simply ID will also do. But let's say if you have duplicate IDs as well, just to avoid that, we'll use distinct ID or a distinct phone number. But then again, Pramod, you know, maybe these days we have different phone number, but let's say this was a landline number and two people were from the same family, right? So they would have like that phone number would be counted as only one, but it would be belonging to two different people. So you're getting what I'm trying to say, that you will have to always understand what data are you dealing with, what in this case this will work because these days every individual person will have a different phone number. But let's say if I have put my friend's phone number and my friend is also working in this same organization, so in that case, you know, your query will give you a wrong result. So the best
Yes. Yes.
practice is to always use ID because ID will never give you a wrong result because ID will always be different for a different, you know, person in any organization. So here when you do ID, so this will give you from Arizona you have three, from Austin you have one, from Denver three. So this is going to give you result. Or let's say I don't want this, count distinct ID. I want to give it a Elias. So what I can put is Elias as a number of customers. And now when I run this, I get this, right? City, Arizona, number of customers, right? So yeah, I think this is clear. Any doubt until now? No, right?
No doubt.
So now the seventh question: how many customers belong from Arizona? Now who is going to answer this? Just a second. I just it is always a best practice to have the entire table before you, so that you can then apply your logic there. Uh, so now who raised hand? I think let's go with Lokesh. I think Lokesh didn't answer a lot of questions. Yeah, Lokesh, what will be the answer for this?
Select city
Just a second. Select city
from table E00
from this
where city is equal to
where city is equal to
Arizona.
Arizona. So you always remember whenever you are doing or whenever you are dealing with, alphabets, or whenever you're dealing with characters, not
Quotation.
numbers. So always put that in quotes, single quotes, right? So what I want is Arizona, right? So Arizona, single quote. Is this correct, Lokesh? Select city from. What do you think will be the result of this query? Select city from E001 cust where city is equal to Arizona. What
Yes.
I want is
Yeah.
how many customers belong from Arizona. So, for example,
Select
uh,
count from
sorry,
select count customers from
in this query,
yeah.
after city,
Select
before city, or should I remove city?
before city.
Before city, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter, right?
I
It is
mean
after city. What you're
mm,
saying, a count,
customer.
there's no
This
customer
means
column.
I
ID,
it's ID column.
ID, yeah, ID. So, will this give you an answer?
No, sir.
Or let Lokesh answer. Lokesh, what do you think is the error here?
Group by I don't know.
No, no, you don't have to go group by.
Yeah.
I might, this might be a tricky, this might be a trick question. There might be no error. Do you think there's an error? I'm asking you. This might be correct, right? Had there been an error, we would have got a red mark. So there's no syntax error at least. So shall we like run this and see what we get? Right. So did we get the right answer? Yes, right. We got the
Yes.
right answer. This is what the answer is. So if you see group by, if you see Arizona had three. So see what Lokesh did here is I'll show this on the blackboard. So see, this was our table, this was our ID, this was our city. City was Arizona, then let's say Denver, then let's say New York, right? This was one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, right? So when you simply do, when you want to find all the city and its customer and its number of customers, so you simply do select city, count of star or count of ID, both will work from table T1, right? This is T1. So what this will give you? This will give you Arizona and group by city. This will give you Arizona. Then for Arizona, it will count how many? Three. Then Denver, this will give you two. Then New York will give you three, right? This is your complete. Now let's say if you want only this, right, Arizona. So what you're all now just try to understand this concept correctly, very clearly. What happens when you put a where clause? Select city, count, ID from T1. Now you're putting a where, right? Where city is equal to Arizona. So I told you your query always starts with from, execution starts with from. So it will go to the table from, it will go to city, and then it will only select those rows where you have Arizona as city, right? So Arizona 1, 2, 3, right? And then it will give you the city name and it will give you the count ID. Then hence your answer will be Arizona 3. But see, I think in the last class Piyush might have discussed, whenever you use a aggregate function, right? You always have to use a group by clause. But see here our question is like our query is working even without a group by clause, right? You saw here, right? Even without a group by clause, you got the answer. But in this case it might work, but there might be certain cases where when you apply where, right? Let's say if you want, if it was a date, right? If it was a date and there was a date range, let's say if you wanted customers who place the order between, let's say, first and third. So in that case, if you put a where clause and then you group by date, so how will the table know that you want to do a group by, right? So always, it is always the best practices that whenever you use the aggregate function, you can group by one or group by city. It will give you the same answer. Answer won't differ, but it is always a good practice that whenever you use an aggregate function, you always do a group by against whichever column you want that aggregate function to function, right? So I think this is clear now. Let us do a few more questions here. I'll frame just I think someone has raised hand. Who is this? Yeah, Vibhor.
So, what if we uh, if we write select count distinct ID from table go to Arizona, is it not correct?
Just a second. Select count
Distinct ID.
distinct. Yeah, it will work. It will work. See, distinct will not give you a problem here. Count distinct ID. Okay, okay. I think your question is different. Can you repeat what is the question? Select
Select
count distinct ID from
E001 cust,
hmm,
which is the table name,
hmm,
where city is equal to Arizona.
where city is equal to everyone. Okay, good one. I think you are trying to think this is a good I think indication. See, what do you think will the answer be?
Just three will be the answer.
Yeah, just let's say here, though the question is how many customers. Yeah, so you are correct. But let's say if I tell you I also want to know the city name, and then against that city name, I want to know how many customers. So if you run, let's say if what Vibhor has said, if you run this, you'll only see distinct because I've only asked for count distinct ID, right? So you'll not get to know the city name. So it is understood that you need the city Arizona, right? So yeah, this will work. This will work. But if you want the city name as well, so you put a city name, right? Now this will be easy to read, right? So it depends on what you are answering. So yeah, if my question said, and I think Vibhor is correct here, my question only said how many customers from Arizona. So I think for that you can put this, and let's say if I change my question as give me an output such that how many customers from Arizona. All right. So in this case, you will put the city name as well. So yeah, I think Vibhor was right. So depending on what question you're answering, you can add or remove the column names. So I think there are more questions. Who is this? Harshvardhan. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's say I'm writing a query as select
Select
distinct city,
distinct city,
comma,
hmm,
count city
count city.
from this table name, है ना? What
Hmm.
will like how will the machine work in this? Like first it will like count do the distinct cities and then count those distinct city only, or like I don't understand how the machine will read this. That's the
Okay,
thing.
okay, okay. Good one, good one. Let us go to the blackboard. So what was your query? Select distinct city, count city from T1, right? So let us just, can you mute yourself? Whoever this is.
Okay.
Yeah. So let us call this as city. Let us call this A, B, 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 C, D, D. All right. This is your city. So let us go very, from the very basic. From T1, right? So you selected your table. What you want is distinct city. So what you did is you went to the city column and you got this A, B, C, D, right? So you got this one. Now the other column is, so this is going to be a city. Then the other column is count of city. See, now what happens? Count of city. So this is going to count the city from the original table, right? This was 2, this is 3, this is 1, this is 2. Do you think this will be the answer?
No, we didn't use group by, so this should not be the answer.
We didn't use a group by, right? So this shouldn't be the answer. Are you getting any syntax error here?
Maybe, and I didn't use this, just thought came in my mind, like in C or any programming language, what happens is that it will like take a different value of cities, right? So that's why I was having confusion. मुझे लग रहा है कि इसमें syntax error आ सकता है
देखो
because
ये
rows
क्या करेगा ना,
same
मैं
नहीं
तुमको
होंगे
बताता
कोई
हूँ।
भी.
जब तक तुमने ग्रुप बाय नहीं लगाया ना, अनलेस एंड until you tell your computer that you want to group by the city, it will always count all the rows in a table. देखो ग्रुप बाय करता क्या है ना, मैंने ये शायद पिछले क्लास में बताया था। ग्रुप बाय जब तुम लगाते हो ना, तब वो तुमको बताता है कि मुझे इसको एक ग्रुप बना लो और फिर इसमें काउंट करो, इसको एक ग्रुप बना लो फिर इसको काउंट करो, इसको एक ग्रुप बना लो इसको काउंट करो, राइट? जब तुमने ग्रुप बाय नहीं लगाया ना, तो ये पूरे रो को एक साथ काउंट करता है, राइट? तो जैसे अभी तुमने यहाँ पर ग्रुप बाय नहीं लगाया, तुमने काउंट दे दिया, राइट? तो वो क्या करेगा ना, सबको काउंट करेगा। तो कितना है, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, तो ये 8 यहाँ दे देगा। बट देखो ये 8 तो आ गया, अब तुमने डिस्टिंक्ट सिटी बोला है, अब ये 8 के आगे सारे चीज तो आ नहीं सकते, ए बी सी डी ऐसे आ नहीं सकता। तो ये क्या करता है, सबसे पहला वैल्यूज उठाता है अगर तुमने नाम दिया सिटी का, और इसी के अगेंस्ट ये जो है तुम्हारा आंसर दे देता है।
ओके, वही मुझे लगा कि पता नहीं, जैसे डिस्टिंक्ट सिटी अपन पहले
नहीं,
दिए
ये
हैं तो
काफी
वो
अच्छा
उसके
क्वेश्चन था।
चक्कर में
दिस वाज अ वेरी
लोकेट
दिस वाज अ
कर.
वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन। सो ऑलवेज रिमेंबर, जब भी आप बिना ग्रुप बाय के अगर एग्रीगेट फंक्शन देते हो, तो वो क्या करेगा, सबको काउंट कर लेगा। अभी जैसे हमारे पिछले केस में मैंने क्यों बोला था कि इट इज ऑलवेज गुड टू यूज ग्रुप बाय, जैसे आपने यहाँ पर वेयर लगा दिया, मान लो वेयर सिटी इज इक्वल टू ए, ठीक है? तो ये पहले वेयर वेयर क्लॉज से फिल्टर कर लेगा, है ना? पहले फिल्टर कर लेगा तो सिर्फ आपको ए वाला देगा, ठीक है? और फिर इसमें से आपको फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा ग्रुप बाय लगाओ कि नहीं, क्योंकि आपका 2 ही काउंट है और आपको सिटी का नाम भी ए मिल जाएगा और 2 मिल जाएगा। बट प्रॉब्लम तब आती है ना जब आपके मल्टीपल फील्ड्स और आप डिस्टिंक्ट लगा रहे हो, या मल्टीपल फील्ड्स के मल्टीपल कॉलम्स मल्टीपल रोज को आप जो है काउंट करना चाह रहे हो विद डिफरेंट नेम, उस केस में दिक्कत आती है। तो आपको कभी भी एग्रीगेट फंक्शन के साथ आपको इसके लिए बेस्ट प्रैक्टिस ये होती है कि आप ग्रुप बाय लगाओ, है ना? तो यहाँ पर अगर आपने ग्रुप बाय नहीं लगाया तो ये क्या करेगा ना, ये पुराने टेबल पे जाएगा। डिस्टिंक्ट तो बाद में बना हमारा, पर ये डिस्टिंक्ट को नहीं काउंट कर रहा है, ये तो तब तुम्हारा टेबल बनाया जब ग्रुप बाय लगा दिया हमने। तो ये पहले सिटी पे जाएगा, तो ये पुराना टेबल पे जाएगा, और आपने कोई वेयर क्लॉज नहीं दिया है ना? ये वेयर क्लॉज नहीं है, तो ये सबको काउंट करेगा, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, ये 8 का 8 को काउंट करेगा, एक सिटी काउंट सिटी नाम का कॉलम बनाएगा और उसके अंदर उसके नीचे डाल देगा। और जो आपका यहाँ डिस्टिंक्ट सिटी या जो सिटी आना चाहिए था, तो ABCD आना चाहिए था, पर आपके यहाँ पर तो एक ही वैल्यूज है, तो ये बाकी सब वैल्यूज को हटा देगा और सिर्फ पहला वैल्यूज को पकड़ लेगा। तो अगर आप यहाँ पर देखोगे तो इसने सिर्फ सैन फ्रांसिस्को पकड़ा और सारी सिटी को काउंट करके इसने रिजल्ट दे दिया। ठीक है, तो दिस इज अ वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन हर्षवर्धन। आई थिंक ऐसे क्वेश्चन पूछना चाहिए ताकि और क्लैरिटी बाकी क्लास को भी आए। तो ठीक है, आई थिंक दिस वाज गुड। और कोई क्वेश्चन अभी तक के क्लास में किसी को? आई थिंक ये मुझे अच्छा लग रहा है कि एवरीवन एवरीवन इज आस्किंग क्वेश्चन। और मैं एक चीज और बता देता हूँ दैट इसके बाद ये क्लास के बाद आपको कुछ असाइनमेंट्स दूंगा मैं, तो ये असाइनमेंट्स करना और अपने लेवल पे ना, जैसे भी ये तुमको एक कस्टमर टेबल मिल गया और ऑर्डर्स टेबल मिल गया, डेट टेबल, तो अपने मन से कुछ कुछ क्वेश्चन सोचना कि इसमें मैं और क्या कर सकता हूँ। ठीक है, कि मे बी इनमें से मैं पता कर सकता हूँ कि कितने डिफरेंट नेम्स है। अभी मैं जॉइंट्स पढ़ाए नहीं, जब जॉइंट्स पढ़ाऊंगा तो और तो यूटिलिटी थोड़ी और बढ़ेगी। अभी फॉर एग्जांपल हम इसी टेबल को एक बार हम नल को भी हैंडल कर लेते हैं। जैसे तुम देखो एड्रेस में ना कई सारे नल वैल्यूज हैं। ठीक है, तुम देख रहे हो यहाँ पर कई सारे नल वैल्यूज हैं। अब मान लो कि मैं करता हूँ, मैं तुमको ये बोलूँ कि मुझे ये बताओ यार कि इस टेबल में कितने नल नल वैल्यूज है। मुझे ये कोई बता पाएगा कितने एड्रेस में कितने नल वैल्यूज है? एक मिनट। ठीक है, मुझे खाली इतना बता रहा है हाउ मेनी रोज, मुझे एक नंबर चाहिए विथ नल वैल्यूज इन दी एड्रेस कॉलम। तो यहाँ पर वेयर क्लॉज भी लगेगा, ग्रुप बाय भी लगेगा, कई सारी चीजें लगेंगी। तो ध्यान से करना। किसने हैंड रेज किया? ये कौन है? प्रमोद। हाँ प्रमोद बोलो।
काउंट दिखाना है, हाउ मेनी
हाँ,
रोज।
मुझे खाली ये बताओ कि कितने रोज है जिनका वैल्यू नल है।
सेलेक्ट काउंट
सिलेक्ट काउंट
एड्रेस
एड्रेस
फ्रॉम टेबल नेम
फ्रॉम टेबल नेम
वेयर
वेयर
एड्रेस इज नल।
एड्रेस इज नल। ठीक है यार, अब देखो इसने ये क्वेरी तो लिख दी है। अब इसके पहले कि मैं इसके रिजल्ट पे जाऊं, किसी को इस पे कोई क्वेश्चन रेज करना है इस पर्टिकुलर क्वेरी पे? किसको लग रहा है कि ये मुझे नल वैल्यूज दे देगा?
It won't read null values, right? Then when you write null, it will read.
सॉरी लोकेश, व्हाट डिड यू से?
If you write it as null, it won't read the null values in any row. And if you write just as a null, it will read the null values. I mean, it will count the null values.
आई डिडंट गेट यू, व्हाट आर यू सेइंग लोकेश?
Where address is null, he
या
told, right? Promote told,
Yeah,
right?
see what happening, what he did, like partly he's correct. See, what is happening is, I'll like switch to the blackboard. See, what he is doing is, this is our address, right? This is our ID. Let's say there are three fields as null and there is some address here. Right? So when he did select, what did he say? Select count of address from T1 where address is null. So see, he's partly correct. Why? I always told you, always read the query from, always read the query from this from statement and then go to this, right? See, from T1, so it will go to the table T1 where address is null. So it will pick up these. So your final table is going to be only this. So rest else is filtered. Now, यहाँ तक तो ठीक है. It is good till here. Now what you are doing is, Lokesh, sorry, who was it? Pramod. You're counting the address. But
Yes,
see,
that is wrong
yeah,
method.
as I told you, null will not count the,
Yes, yes.
like sorry, count will not
Count
consider
the
the
null value.
null.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but you know that you know you have some record, some ID would be present here. So You know now this table only contains all the addresses with the null value. So what is the easier way
So
around?
other
You are correct till here, right?
ID we can take.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you can do is
Yes.
select count. Instead of address, you will do ID from here. So see, this is how you iterate, reiterate, and this is how you learn. I think I will not expect anyone. In fact, even if I write the query, I might write this query first, and then I'll see, okay, what is the error here? Okay, this is counting, it is not counting the null value, right? And then I'll do this, and this will give me the correct. So let us now run this query just one to see. See, it is giving you 0 because it will not count null, right? But instead of address, if you write ID, it will give you what happened. Are we not having ID as null? I think there has to be some issue there. Okay, this is not even considering any row. I think these values
But
are not null. I think there has these are blank values, or maybe something written which we cannot see. I think this,
Sir,
yeah.
sir, is not there anyway? Like we have already taught about aggregate function like sum. Is there
Hmm.
not any aggregate function like minus? And we
Hmm.
can use minus here. Like we will count total number of address and total number of address and no, but we cannot use here any like minus function.
I get your question. See, no, who is this? Who is asking this question?
Sir, before.
Uh, Vibhor. See, Vibhor, no, we don't have any minus function here because you have to understand what sum does is it simply counts the number of rows. Minus, there is a way around. You will you have to take an entire table and then instead of minus you apply not in. I'll teach that to you later. We'll be doing that in the
that
class.
will be a little bit complicated right now.
Yeah, so we'll not go into minus thing. I'll just simply we are just counting here. Now see, I'll tell you why this is not functioning. This query here is absolutely correct, but I think there is some problem with our table. This table is not null. This address here is not null. Like it is simply a blank row with some values, maybe a space bar or something. See, otherwise you would have gotten a null here, right? See, if I'm saying select star from ER where address is not null. So
Eh,
that means it should only give me this, but it is also giving me this. That means this address, these columns are not being read as null, right? So these columns are being read as something. So maybe while preparing this table, someone might have simply put a space bar or something. So this space bar is then not null, it is counted as a value, right? So sometimes like see, these are runtime error which you know come across while working as a data analyst, so you have to be very cautious. See, that's why how did I diagnose that whether this is null value or not? I simply ask this system to give me all the address where it is not null, but it is then giving me address where I am assuming it to be null, but it is actually not null, right? So maybe if I can you know use a way around. See, if I am not adding anything in here. So it is now considering that, okay, these are blank values. So sometimes instead of null, you simply use a quote unquote and you don't write anything. See, as I did here. So now if I run the same query, select count address, where address is this, so it will give me a, because we're not counting null, right? So this is a space bar or something which is being counted as a entry. So are you getting this point? Are you getting this particular peculiarity in this table? Anyone having doubt?
Yeah, no doubt. Got it.
All right, good, good. So see, sometimes you come across these kind of, you have to always understand that what the column is. Is it a null? Is it a space? Or what it is. So, so there's always a way around, and this is what experience and this is what your practice will give you, right? So I think we are done with the basics now. I'll just teach you joins in the very last, as a very last concept, and then we can pick up from joins. All right, so we are done till here. So we have now, until now, every operation that we did was on customer table. We have another table which is joins, which is orders. So let us just see what is there in the orders table. Okay. So see, we have these. So I'll just take a blackboard here. So this was our 001 customer table. What did we have in the customer table? Customer ID, customer name, first name, and just giving it the column name as name, city, address, and then we have E001 orders table. Now see, understand as a business or in real life, what does these two tables signify? Now what are the columns here? ID, customer ID, ID, customer ID, order date, and order details, and then let's call this amount. See, now can you tell me what is the difference in this E001 orders table? What is the difference between ID and customer ID? Why do we have these two ID columns? Maybe Nikhil, you haven't spoken. So what is the difference between these two columns? Nikhil, you can speak. Has Nikhil left the lecture? Nikhil, can you hear me? Okay, I think Lokesh.
Yeah, customer ID is unique to any one particular person, but he can make n number of orders. I mean, different orders. So the different orders come in the ID, and the customer ID is unique for the all the orders, right?
Yeah, you're partly correct. See, for this customer table, we are storing all the details of the customer, right? So here the ID is going to be unique for every customer, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So this is basically all the customers. So you will only have one customer with a one ID. Now this is orders table. So what this table is doing, this is storing all the values of a particular order, right? So that means every order is going to be different. Understand the business behind this. Orders, whenever you make an order, so this ID is nothing but the ID of the order, right? So and every order is distinguished by different ID because we are dealing with the orders table. So we want to identify each order with a different ID. So we give it an order ID. So this can be called an order ID or simple order ID, right? So this is going to be unique here. But customer ID, what does this mean? This means this particular order is made by which customer, right? So as Lokesh pointed, one particular customer can make multiple ID, must have multiple orders, right? So let's say if you are talking about order ID 1, this can be made by, let's say, customer ID 71. Then order ID 2, again this can be made by a customer for ID equals 71. Like he can place two different orders at different time of day, right? We have order date, so on different date, let's say he made two different orders. Then order ID 3. Let's say again this customer makes an order ID. Let me call this, he made on 22nd November. This he made on 23rd November, and this he made on 25th November, right? Then let's say order ID 4. So let's say this was made by customer 23. Order ID 5, this was made by customer 21, right? So on and so forth. So see, what you can see is for the table name orders, the order ID is going to be the unique, but the customer ID can be same because one customer can make two different orders, right? But one order, one customer, or maybe one order cannot be for two different customers. So let's say if there is order one, so this cannot have two customers, 71 and 72, right? It is one order is always going to be for one particular customer because you will order it from one app or maybe some device. So it is always going to be associated like this. But one customer can have two orders, right? This is correct. This is wrong. So you're getting what is happening. So what is happening is any unique value of a table, right? Any unique column of a table is called primary key, right? So this is a primary key for the orders table, and this is the primary key for the customer table. But customer ID 71. Let's say if I want here in the orders table, I don't know the customer name. Let's say if I want to know the customer name, what do? I will go to the customer ID 71, and I know the customer ID 71 ka all the details are there in this customer table, right? So if I want to go to the customer table for 71, I will go to the customer table and somewhere I'll get 71 and I'll get the name of the person. Let's say the name is Rahul, right? And all the details. So see, this particular number is pointing to a different table, and in this table, this particular ID is a primary key, right? So such a key which is not unique in this table but unique in some other table and which is used to point to a different table is called foreign key. So always remember two very important concepts: primary key and foreign key. So what is primary key? Primary key is unique values of a table, right? And foreign key is not unique in that table, not unique in that table, but points to other table and unique in that other table. Now, this is the last concept I think for the day. I'll wrap up. I know you guys are tired. I just want this concept to be, taught today. And if there is any doubt, you can ask me. Did you get this difference between foreign key and primary key? I'll give you an example. Let's say there is a department table. There will be a department ID and will be a department name. Let me call department ID 1, 2, 3, HR, IT, and let me call this as product. And then there is another table, let me say uh, employee, employee ID, employee name, and employee salary. Let me call employee department, department ID. Let's say employee ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? There will be some name. Let me call this department ID 1, 1, 2, 2, 3. Right? So can you tell me what is the primary key here in this particular table? Who can tell me?
Department name.
Department ID. Department ID. See, name
ID.
name we don't though names are unique here, but whenever we talk about primary key, we always go with the integer value, right? So here is a department ID, right? So department ID is going to be the primary key. What is the primary key for employee? Employee ID,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because these are unique value because we want
Employee
to
ID.
identify the employee as unique. Now see, one employee ID can belong to only one department, right? So it will have one-to-one relation, but one department can have many employees. So you see, one department can have many employees, right? So that means this is not a unique value. This is not a unique value, but this becomes unique in this department table. So this is a foreign key here, right? So I hope you're getting the concept of foreign key. You don't have to like by heart this. Maybe when we do problem statements, you will understand why do we use this. So see, what happens is foreign key and primary key. Why is this concept important? Because it is important to in table joins. Now this is going to be the most I would say the most dreaded topic for most of the beginners here. Joins. इसको अच्छे से समझना. Try to understand this very clearly and very attentively. Table joins. तो joins क्या होता है ना? जब when you have some details in some table and you have some details in other table and you want to find you know details from one table and other table, you have to somewhere join the table. So join में what you require two basic things. First is two tables या more than two tables. ठीक है? So I will just write multiple tables. You require foreign key and primary key. You require a joining condition. This is represented by the on clause, right? Let us call this table T1, table T2. Now try to understand this concept very clearly. I'll just take like 5 more minutes and then primary key and foreign key. See, I'll take a very simple example. The same department. This is let's say employee table. This is let's say department table. This is employee ID name. This is department ID and name. Employee ID 1, 2, 3, 4. Let us call this name as Rahul, Vibhor, Lokesh, and who else is there? Shubhankar. Let us call this department ID as 1, 2, 3. Let us call this HR, product, and let me call this as IT. There is another department ID. Let us call Rahul to be working in department 1, 2, 2, 3. Right. Now, the question is, in which department does Lokesh work? Can anyone tell me?
Product.
Huh. How did you do it? It is not given,
By
right? Neither in employee table it is given, neither in department table.
department.
But what is the logic that you applied? You use for Lokesh is in department ID 2, right? You know 2 is not unique here because you don't know what is the value for 2. But you know that in the department table, you connected department table. And then from this department table, you took up the name of the department. And you said Lokesh work in product department. See, so now what you do here is prime foreign key of this table is a primary key of this table. So you always use a foreign key to join a primary key, right? Always remember a foreign key is used to join to a primary key of some different table, and then your table you get a new table, right? So I'm calling this table as E and calling table this the second table as D. So I'll just write a simple query here. Select star from E join D. Just see the syntax. Okay. On E